Hello, everyone. This is Caren Glasser, and welcome to today's episode of Connecting People, Changing Lives. And I'm here with my amazing cohort and co-host, Nancy Ferrari. Good morning, Nancy. How are you?
Good morning, Caren. I'm doing just fabulous, and happy August. Hard to believe, right?
Oh my gosh.
We just are forecasting ahead of time, like, whoa, but I am just so excited. This is a all in the family show today, which I think is really, really awesome, because I get to meet, and I refer to her as your daughter in love, and her name, because I've been promoting her, I went, wow, it's interesting to be writing the same name. But Emily Glasser is here with us today, and so impressed by her already. I can't wait to hear more about her expertise, and I'm going to share a little bit more about Emily for the viewers, so they'll have a little introduction here. Emily received her master's degree in Oriental Medicine from the Pacific College of Oriental Medicine. She is also licensed in the state of California as an acupuncturist and herbalist, and is also an applied clinical nutrition. She's had comprehensive training in functional medicine, lab testing, and analysis, and we're going to be talking not a huge range of topics, but one that is really, really important. And I know if you're watching shows like The Doctors or Dr. Oz, blood sugar is a topic that they touch on because it can lead to other issues, and we want to get Emily's expertise out there on that. And I also want to share that she's currently writing a book entitled The 80s Tried to Kill Us. And you're so right on, and I can't wait to talk about it, because in comes McDonald's and all that other stuff. So with that said, Emily, I'm so pleased you're with us today, and I warmly welcome you to Connecting People, Changing Lives. How are you?
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here to talk a little bit more about some of my favorite topics. And of course, eventually you'll all hear from my book about how hairspray and leg warmers weren't the only thing that to come out of the 80s that might have killed us. But many different food and dietary recommendations that kind of led us astray as a nation, which some of that we're going to talk a little bit about today.
It is interesting, because being the generation that I am, and being born in the mid-50s, everything was grass. There was no such thing as fast food. Fast food was as fast as my mom could cook it, and then all of a sudden, all that started coming our way. I remember TV dinners. I mean, that was a treat. I'm like, oh no. And I think back, what were we putting in our bodies? So
I know, right.
But the thing is interesting now is the shift to going back to basics. And
that's right. I mean, it sounds so foreign to us when we talk about just eating simply and eating simple foods. Eating, some protein, eating just a clean piece of protein sounds almost foreign to people, and understanding what is processed and what isn't processed seems to be really confusing people. Even something like a piece of bread is processed, and pasta is processed to a degree. So, the obvious stuff are the Twinkies and the Ding Dongs and the junk food, and that's really obvious to us. But we've kind of been led astray for quite a while now. It's really amazing. Actually, the average American will eat 3,550 pounds of sugar in their lifetime. So, and that sugar is coming from our processed foods, not just the Twinkies that we're eating.
Right. Well, we titled this particular episode, The Biggest Energy Sucker, What You Need to Know. So obviously the first question that we need to ask you, Emily, is, what is the biggest energy sucker? Oh, and say hello to my puppy.
Annie, how are you?
So what is that? What is the biggest energy sucker?
Well, it's not your ex-wife or husband, I promise. That might be true for you, but the number one complaint that I get is low energy. I've been in practice for over a decade, and the number one complaint that I get from patients is that they're fatigued or they have low energy. And that symptom can range anywhere from, feeling a little bit tired in the morning, needing that coffee to wake up in the morning and to get going, not being able to function without it, maybe having an afternoon lull where the energy drops in the afternoon. And that ranges all the way to the people that are feeling fatigued all day long and feeling exhausted. And the number one reason for that fatigue and that kind of energy lull and drop is having a blood sugar that fluctuates throughout the day. Having the highs and the lows of blood sugar can create an incredible amount of fatigue, even on the minor side and all the way to the major side.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, definitely. And so big conversation all the time is had about this and how to regulate that. And Caren knows this. A couple months ago, I just ditched the coffee. And I really actually wasn't quite so bad, but I just found that there would be, more spikes, and I just don't miss it anymore. It takes a little while, but what I found is that if I'm overwhelmed with making many changes, then you're just going to default back. It's that would you say just gradually incorporating new changes.
Absolutely, and I think that's just it. Sometimes it's more important to do things gradually than trying to do it all at once. And the coffee really ties into some of the stuff we were talking about earlier, that adrenal fatigue. Because when the adrenal glands, and those are two little glands at the top of your kidneys that regulate many different hormones, including something called cortisol, that helps you produce energy throughout the day and have sustained energy. And where that ties into the blood sugar is if the blood sugar is going up and down throughout the day, the adrenal glands are very much impacted by that. And what coffee does is it overstimulates the adrenal glands. And when we overstimulate the adrenal glands, then actually the other reverse happens where our blood sugar will then drop and spike even more. So I know coffee drinkers it's really tough because it's such a ritual for many people. A lot of times it's just an enjoyable way to start the morning. It tastes good. A lot of people like the warm drink in the morning. But unfortunately, if we're doing too much of it can really damage our ability to regulate our blood sugar as well as our adrenal glands.
So I have a question. So what is too much of it? Is one glass okay? 1 cup of coffee?
Well, that actually really pertains to where your health is at. So if you're somebody who experiences massive blood sugar fluctuations, or even on the minor side, it's important to regulate and get that regulated and probably take a break from the coffee. And once that's regulated and healed up, you may be able to go back. For some of my severe cases, we need to do more of abstaining from coffee for a longer period of time. If it's more, if it's not as bad or you don't have any blood sugar fluctuations throughout the day, then you probably could get away with a cup a day. But I wouldn't really be doing more than a cup and a half a day, even if you are perfectly healthy, because eventually that will overstimulate the adrenal glands.
And it's the same
unless
thing
you're a monk in a cave,
yeah.
You live in you don't have any stress in your life. You eat perfectly. You live in a cave. You don't deal with any traffic. I mean, I'm in Los Angeles, so of course that's a daily experience, right? They have to have all these things in place, and then maybe you can have, abundant coffee. But for most of us, we have to modify or moderate the amount that we do drink just to have a reasonable amount. And I think 1 cup a day if you're healthy, but we should probably talk about what that looks like if you are having issues with your blood sugar.
Well, that was my next question. So how does one know that they're having a blood sugar issue?
So that's a great question. So if you crave sugar or carbohydrates, raise your hand. If you raise your hand.
They're
not, there's only 3 of us here, so no one else has to admit it, right? If you get a little shaky, or, the key word is or, a little lightheaded, or a little irritable, if your spouse or your significant other says she's going to snap my head off, or get that girl a cookie, because she's getting really irritated and aggravated, then that's a key sign that your blood sugar is taking a dip. If you are someone who loses concentration or has difficulty remembering things, that's a sign that your blood sugar may be spiking or dropping. So this is a pretty big laundry list. If you crave salt, sometimes that's a key sign that your blood sugar or your adrenal glands are slipping. If you feel like you're craving more sugar or carbohydrates after you eat like a heavy carb meal, that's a very significant sign that you're having some blood sugar spikes. So those are the key symptoms that you would want to look at. Craving sugar or carbohydrates, especially after a heavier meal. Feeling shaky, lightheaded, or irritable in between meals. You can't think or concentrate. And then oftentimes headaches are a key sign. Even for some migraine sufferers, blood sugar is the key component that hasn't been addressed. And once we address that, their migraines and headaches go away. So those are really good key signs. And then fatigue. You know, fatigue is a big one. So if you're feeling like that afternoon lull, somewhere 2, 3, 4 o'clock, you're getting fatigued. You're having difficulty waking up in the morning. You need that cup of coffee like we were talking about to get started and get going. And then the big one that I see is waking up at night. So if you are someone, maybe you fall asleep okay, but suddenly you're waking up at night, you're tossing and turning, that is a big sign that your blood sugar is dropping at night and needs to be corrected.
Oh my God, I think I need to come see you again.
Well, you have Skype. You can consult with you. And it's just a matter of learning these things and connecting with people, with experts such as yourself to help people get to that point. Now, can we take this a little further? If you are or there's a person out there that's really going heavy with the carbs and the sugars and what that is going to do to your glucose levels.
Right.
And then what are you looking at? Because when I started learning more about that, I went, all of a sudden bread was not an issue.
Right.
When I found out how many teaspoons of sugar are in one slice of bread, I go, forget it. I don't need it.
Right. I love that question. I love that question because a lot of times we're thinking, oh, okay, so what? I get a little irritable or shaky or lightheaded. And a lot of us have these symptoms for a long period of time. And so we're used to, we just deal with it. We just figure it's part of life and we just kind of deal with it and move on, but we don't realize that there are pretty serious ramifications for letting that go, because as you let that go, that leads to diabetes, that leads to insulin resistance, and what's happening internally, you may be feeling some minor symptoms externally, but listening to your body is so important because it makes a huge global impact on our body to have those blood sugar fluctuations of high and low throughout the day. Every time our blood sugar drops or even spikes, that actually kills off glial cells in the brain. Glial cells are particular brain cells that are pretty important, and so it's almost like saying we get some minor brain damage when we let that go. So that's why we have cognitive dysfunction. That's why we get a little kind of hazy and lack of concentration, because we're actually damaging the brain. It also damages epithelial cells. In other words, it damages the arteries, which then leads to cholesterol. So the whole cholesterol picture has very much to do with our blood sugar, and actually not so much to do with eating fat and eating fatty foods. In fact, healthy fats can actually protect us, and we're just seeing that now, and we are actually seeing a new era in that, new regulations from the government about how healthy fats are so very important for us, and regulating blood sugar is so very important. Some other things that happen when our blood sugar fluctuates is that we create systemic inflammation in the body. That's some of the reasons why diabetics have diabetic neuropathy, because we damage nerve cells. And so when nerves get damaged, we get pain, and muscle tissue gets damaged too. So we can have joint pain and aches and pains. We can have weird tingling in our feet or our extremities, which is what neuropathy is. And we can have a variety of symptoms that can lead to kidney damage. It can lead to, our body's ability to heal wounds. That's another really important thing that diabetics have to deal with, because when their blood sugar is not regulated, their body cannot heal wounds. Let's see. It suppresses brain function, and of course it suppresses our adrenal glands. And for most of us, when we think about our adrenal glands, we're thinking about our ability to regulate our hormones. And there's a huge part of the adrenal glands that regulate our sex hormones. Our hormones like our estrogen, our progesterone, our testosterone. And so for women, that rings true for regulating menstrual cycles, for actually having a good menopause really has to do with how well you've managed your blood sugar over your lifetime and how well your adrenal glands are functioning. So if you're having the heat intolerance or sweats, night sweats, hot flashes, that's a real sign that the blood sugar needs to be regulated along with the adrenal glands. So it does have such a huge global impact. If we just kind of pass off our symptoms as, they're mild and, maybe we can live with them, it's important to think about, down the line what this would develop into.
So, Emily, what is the best way for someone to actually get evaluated for this? Is this blood work, or is this, how do people get evaluated for things like this?
That's a great question. So, of course, the first place to start is to think about the checklist of symptoms. So you want to kind of go through the checklist of symptoms, and if you have any of those symptoms, consider that you probably do have at least a mild condition where your blood sugar is fluctuating throughout the day, and still treat it. But if you're concerned that there's something more serious going on, and I do recommend for every single person to have further evaluation to see where you are on that scale, because there is a scale, there's a spectrum of blood sugar issues. There's the more mild side where we're just in the beginning stages of having this kind of up and down blood sugar fluctuation, and it's super easy to fix with just 1 or 2 dietary and lifestyle changes. But then as we let that go, we march down the scale towards a more severe issue, and we definitely want to have it evaluated. Even in the more if we think it's mild, we want to have it evaluated right away. So I recommend finding a good, literate functional medicine practitioner or a really good nutritionist such as myself, who really is literate in blood sugar and understands how to evaluate. But the 3 key components that you would want to have evaluated if you're going to take yourself off to the doctor and ask for lab work, the 3 things that you would want other than a blood glucose, because remember, blood glucose alone is not nearly enough to evaluate for a blood sugar issue. It's quite inaccurate, actually. So just going to the doctor and having your blood glucose level taken is not a good, accurate way for us to determine how severe your blood sugar issue is. It's just a tiny little snapshot in one little moment in the day, and blood sugar can be fluctuating throughout the day. So we need to get a more broader, accurate picture. So aside from blood glucose, the 3 tests that you would want to ask for are hemoglobin A1C, that's hemoglobin A1C, fructosamine, and insulin. And those 3, along with the blood glucose, will give us a much better, more accurate picture as to what's going on. So if you're someone who just has some of those symptoms, and all those come back normal, then you can very easily just make a couple changes in your diet and really prevent yourself from marching down towards the insulin resistance diabetic side of the scale. But then if you have that blood work done and you see some of those things showing up, if you get with a really good medical or actually functional medicine practitioner and you have that evaluated properly, there's tons of nutrition and nutritional supplementation that can be used to reverse that pattern and really reverse and prevent diabetic, having that diagnosis of diabetes, and as well insulin resistance.
So, Emily, I want to touch on something that's probably a little touchy because I have experienced it myself, and you and I have talked about this, the difference between Western and Eastern medicine. And that is, you go in and you have your blood work done. And in today's medical field, there doesn't seem to be the same kind of attention to these labs that come back, where the doctors don't even think it's important enough to talk to their patients about them. And again, I'm just using myself as an example. I have blood work done. The doctor apparently looks at it, doesn't say anything, and then you look at it and you say, whoa, you need to look at this, this, and this. So is it that our medicine today is going in a totally different direction and there's just no time to go over this stuff? Or is this really the difference between somebody like you who has the training and the background to look at all of these things together rather than just simply one reading. And that's something I learned from you, is that one thing may be high, but if other things are high too, then you really need to be looking at this.
Right.
And so is this just what the times are like now? I mean,
yeah, I think it's a combination of everything that you said. I think we have on one side, there are some amazing Western medical doctors out there who are incredibly thorough in relationship to this topic of blood sugar. Those that are aware are running hemoglobin A1C. And maybe not necessarily insulin or fructosamine, but some of them are. And unfortunately, there is an issue with having to see many different patients in a very short period of time, and things do seem to slip by. And so I do, and it is a touchy subject because I see quite a volume of patients in my practice. And I'm looking at labs every single day, and I very frequently see things outside of a lab range that haven't been addressed, and the patient is concerned about it, and they have not heard from their doctor, or maybe their doctor didn't feel it was important enough to address. This is a little bit where functional medicine departs from Western medicine. Western medicine is essential and absolutely important. I have amazing respect for it because it's really there for emergency purposes. If you have an emergency, if you are in a car accident, please don't call your nutritionist or acupuncturist first. You
unless you hurt your back.
You're in the ER.
Right, exactly. And, there is a context and a reason and a purpose for everything. When it comes to functional medicine, its birth happened because we were trying to create a preventative model. We're trying to see things as they start to slip up before they become the giant diabetes, before they become cancer, hopefully. I mean, it's very difficult to predict those things, but we do know there's quite a number of things that we can do with our diet and lifestyle that can be preventative, that can give us the best, most optimal for our bodies and even our genetic makeup life that we could possibly have. So given all those kind of, maybe set factors, we can optimize how we feel, our day-to-day feeling, and do our best to prevent things. So when we start to see things slipping up, really we're going to look at it and address it way sooner than maybe a Western medical doctor would.
Mm-hmm. Yes, what I have to add to that is within April and May, I saw 4 different doctors for different reasons, of course. But I actually put them in the conversation of certain issues, had comprehensive labs done, very happy with my new primary doctor, but he's one of the rare ones who is an MD, but his practice, he's from St. Louis, and where he practiced, it's all about the patient as
it's wonderful.
In totality. I'm so blessed because this is the first doctor I've ever had, and then he's about simplifying, and he's and not a pill pusher. And I crack up when you're talking about the nerve pain and all those commercials, the big pharmaceuticals throwing, and so I guess my message to all this is buyer beware. I mean, go to a doctor, listen to what they're saying. In fact, he was looking at an evaluation from some other blood work, and they were wanting to put me on a medicine. He goes, this would not at all work for you given the other things that you are dealing with. So no, we're not going to put you actually on anything. I want to see what you can do yourself with nutrition. So I was like,
that's
wow.
amazing. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's your doctor.
Great. That's definitely a keeper for sure. And it is, you do want to think about it in the way that there are a lot of medical practitioners out there. And so if you're hitting a wall with somebody, it's important to know that you can go get another opinion, and that thinking critically is the key. That you are in control of your health, and you want to think critically about what anyone, including me, whether they're Western or Eastern or holistic or not, whatever recommendations are being made, that you think critically, does this make sense? Does the person make sense? Does this make sense for what I'm feeling and my symptoms? And can I do this for myself? I mean, there are people, when I do nutrition with people that don't want to change their diet. Well, a nutritionist is probably not the place that they, the person that they should have gone to, because a nutritionist is going to ask people to change their diet. So understanding what you're willing to do as well is really important. And then really having an open and honest conversation with your doctor. So if you see something, if you get your labs back and you're sitting in front of your doctor, hopefully, and it looks abnormal, the best thing to do, and maybe the doctor hasn't mentioned it, bring it up. Don't be afraid to say, I see this is flagged out of my normal range. What does it mean? And, maybe it may mean that you need to probe. What if they say, oh, it's normal, don't worry? You might want to say, well, okay, but if it really was abnormal, what would it mean? What should I know about this? Because you don't want to be brushed off with your question too, so you may need to push a little bit to get the answers that you're looking for.
That's great. That's great. Yeah.
We have to be our own advocate.
Right.
Absolutely.
Long story short, we're going to get the information, but it's up to us what we're going to do with it, right? Like you said, your patients who don't want to change their diet. Well, that's their choice. You've given them the tools, and so
you're in control. You're in control of what you get to do or not do, and actually that's pretty powerful.
Right. Well, as we're starting to wind down here, I have another question that I think will kind of tie everything up in a nice little package for right this second. And so what are some of the key things that our viewers can start doing right now, if they want to start balancing their blood sugar?
Great. So there's 5 key things that I recommend. So we'll be short because I know we're wrapping up. But the first thing is to make sure that you never skip meals and you always have a breakfast, even if it's just a little bit. The second thing is to make sure that you are eating some protein and healthy fat at every meal. And a quick little laundry list of what that would look like would be healthy fat being avocado, nuts, olive oil, coconut oil, butter, grass-fed organic butter. The best quality would be organic, as clean as possible. Healthy proteins include animal meats. They include chicken, turkey, fish, grass-fed beef. Of course, you want to get very high quality. You don't have to eat a lot. It's not about eating tons of food, but eating adequate amounts where you don't feel lightheaded or irritable. So the trick is to really not let yourself get hungry. So those are the first 2. The third would be really obvious, to start looking at the total carbohydrates that you are consuming and the total amounts of sugars, and start reducing that. And that gets to be a little bit more complex, and that's where you might want to get with a nutritionist to really identify what that looks like. But that's, aside from the junk food that's really obvious, you may want to look at how much bread am I eating? Am I eating a lot of pasta? Do I eat crackers a lot? Those are some of the insidious ways that the carbohydrates and sugars come into our diets without us realizing it. Let's see. Number 4 would be to make sure that you're exercising 4 to 5 times a week. And that exercise does not have to be long time of exercise. Don't think that you have to exercise for an hour at a time. It could be a 15-minute, it could be 5 minutes. The best kind of exercise for regulating blood sugar is interval training and also slow burn resistance training. That actually pushes glucose and insulin out of the bloodstream so that our bodies can start burning fat and we can start regulating blood sugar. So I know these are pretty quick little tidbits. Let's see, what else? We said consume healthy proteins and fats, and then eating every 2 to 3 hours. That's actually the most important of all, and that I would say would be the 5th one. Make sure that you eat every 2 to 3 hours, even if you're not hungry. It doesn't have to be a lot. It could be a small handful of nuts, some like cashews, for instance. It could be a hard-boiled egg or a piece of chicken or turkey. Those things will help regulate the blood sugar. It could be some avocado. That would be great. That would be a great option. And if you were to do all those 5 things, you'd make a huge change in your regulating your blood sugar and actually your energy, your focus, and overall feeling vital. In order to get a little bit more information on that, that's a little bit more detailed information, please feel free to visit my website at emilyglasserhealth.com. And there's a free report called The Sugar Slayer, which really goes into detail all of the 5 elements that I was talking about, a little bit more about blood sugar and how you can regulate your blood sugar and feel better.
I was just going to say that we want to send people to go and check your site out, because I personally can vouch for Emily, not just because she's my daughter-in-law, but because you can obviously see and hear her expertise on this subject, and she is helping me. So, you know, again, I personally am taking advantage of what Emily does and have, and we didn't even get into acupuncture. We didn't get into all the other stuff as well. So we really encourage you to go to emilyglasserhealth.com, get the free report, and get to know Emily even better. Nancy, any last thoughts?
Oh, man. I just have to say I have loved this conversation, as you tell, because you are validating what I'm learning, and I'm definitely going to connect with you. And what I love about what you said about avocados is that, well, we're in California, and I don't know where I learned this information, but they said eat foods that are local to you. It will, we need to have you on the show again, but it works more with your metabolism rather than having foods from South America and other places. And so I'm pretty sure you're going yes on that.
Yes, absolutely.
So thank you so much for being on our show, because knowledge is power, and you've really given some great tips for people to take control of their life, and it doesn't have to be that hard. Right?
Absolutely. It's pretty simple, simple little things to do that make you feel great and make you feel empowered. Absolutely.
Well, we appreciate you. Yeah, we just so appreciate you. I had a great
time. Thanks for having me on.
And thank you for being with us on this episode of Connecting People, Changing Lives. We know that our viewers have a choice as to where to spend their time, and we want to thank you for spending time with us and with Emily Glasser and with Nancy Ferrari today. So we'll see you next time on the next episode of Connecting People, Changing Lives. Goodbye, everyone.